Hi guys! Welcome sa Zip9. In this video ay itutuloy natin yung series natin on radicals, no? At sa video na to, pag-uusapan natin yung roots and variables, no? Now, bago tayo mag-proceed sa topic na yan, tignan muna natin yung numbers dito sa screen ninyo, no? Yung mga numbers na yan ay tinatawag natin na perfect squares kasi square sila ng whole numbers, no? Halimbawa, yung 1 ay 1 squared, yung 4 ay 2 squared, yung 9 ay 3 squared, at saka yung 16 ay 4 squared, no? Now, pagpabaliktad naman, di ba? Pag kinuha mo yung square root ng 1, that is equal to 1. Tapos, square root of 4, that's equal to 2. Square root of 9, that's equal to 3. And square root of 16, that is equal to 4. So, pabalik naman siya, no? Now, paano kung ang pag-uusapan naman natin ay variables, no? May kinalaman sa variables. O paano kung exponential expression siya? Paano natin malalaman kung ang isang expression ay perfect square? Halimbawa, is x to the 10th a perfect square? Anong number ang anong expression ang isi-square natin na magiging x raised to the 10th? Alam niyo ba 'yan? Laws of exponent. So, x to the 5th, di ba? X to the 5th squared is x to the 10th. What about x to the 6th? X cubed squared. What about x to the 7th? Anong i-square natin para siya maging x to the 7th? Wala, no? Wala. So, wala tayong maisip dyan. Now, ibig sabihin, yung perfect squares natin na exponential expression na may variable ay kanyang enumerate kung gagamit tayo ng x, perfect squares. So that's x squared, x to the 4th, x to the 6th, x to the 8th, x to the 10th, no? So ang x to the 8th ay x to the 4th squared, di ba? Kasi ito, x squared squared. Okay? Ano napapansin nyo sa exponent? Exponents are divisible by 2. So exponents divisible by 2. Sinortcut ko na lang, no? What about perfect cubes? That's x cubed. Ano kayo susunod sa tingin nyo? X to the 6th, di ba? X squared cubed is x to the 6th. Susunod, x cubed is x to the 9th. So x to the 9th, x to the 12th, x to the 15th, and so on. Again, exponent is divisible by 3. Okay. Paano kung perfect fourth powers, no? Perfect fourth powers. Alam niyo na siguro, no? X to the 4th, x to the 8th, x to the 12th, x to the 16th, x to the 20th, and so on. Exponent divisible by 4. Okay? So, alam na natin yung perfect squares, alam na natin yung perfect cubes, perfect fourth powers, no? Dapat alam na rin natin yung pabalik, no? So, kung alam natin yung square, dapat alam natin yung square root. Pag alam natin yung cube, alam natin yung cube root. Pag alam natin yung fourth powers, alam natin yung fourth root. Okay? So, halimbawa, ano ang square root for number 1, no? For square root muna. ano ang square root ng x squared? What is square root of x squared? Tama ba na sabihin kaagad natin x? Halimbawa, pag ang x ba ay 2, halimbawa. So, square root of 2 squared is equal to x, no? Tama, no? Tama naman kasi yung x natin, this is x. And this is also x. Parehong 2. What about square root of... Paano kung x mo ay negative? Mag-i-equal pa rin ba sila? X equals negative 3 halimbawa. So, square root of negative 3 squared is equal to... Dapat negative 3 din siya kasi parang x, di ba? So, pwede ba yon? Ano ang square root ng negative 3 squared? So, square root of 9, di ba? Kasi ang 3 squared ay... negative 3 squared ay 9, di ba? Is equal to negative 3. Tama ba yung ganyang equality? Mali, no? Kasi kung napanood yung mga previous videos, sabi natin, pag gumamit tayo ng square root, ang kinukuha natin ay positive root. So, ang mangyayari, this number is positive and this number is negative. Hindi pwede yun, no? Okay? Kaya ang ginawa ng mga mathematicians, para sakop niya yung negative, positive tsaka 0, nilagyan nila ng absolute value. No? Kasi pag negative yung x mo, matatanggal yung pagka-negative using the absolute value. Pag 0 naman, walang problema kasi pag 0 yung squared, 0 naman yan. No? Pag positive, katulad kanina sa unang example natin, walang problema. No? So, in fact, kung maglalagay tayo ng restriction sa x, pag ang x natin is non-negative, hindi kailangan ng absolute value. No? Pero if x is a real number, kailangan natin ng absolute value. Okay? So, ang question is, kailangan ba ito palagi, no? Yung absolute value. So, alam natin na to, no? This is correct expression if x is real number. So, assume x is real number. Is a real number. So, x squared is equal to x. What about square root of x to the fourth? Kailangan ba natin niyang lagyan ng absolute value? X squared siya, di ba? Kasi x squared times x squared is x to the fourth. Pero question, kailangan ba natin yan lagyan ng absolute value? Lagyan ba natin? Anong masasabi niyo sa x squared? Ang x squared ay palagi siyang positive, di ba? Palagi siyang positive or 0. So, pag halimbawa, pag x is negative 2, ang negative 2 to the fourth is 16, di ba? So, magiging square root of 16, which is 4, no? So, yung squared, so magiging square root of 16 ito, which is equal to 4. Ito magiging negative 2 squared. Suppose x is equal to negative 2 na. Magiging 4 pa rin. So, pag may squared, pag even power, no? Remember, ang squared natin, ang perfect square natin ay even power. Pag even power yung root, no? Yung makukuha mong root, there's no need to put absolute value, no? So, halimbawa, baka maguluhan kayo, no? Another example. So, pag sinabi mong absolute value of x to the 8th, ano ang absolute value? Ano ang root niya? Ano square root? X to the 4th, no? This is even, no? The power of the root is even. Therefore, no absolute value. Kasi automatic magiging positive yan or 0. Hindi mo kailangang gawing positive kahit negative yung x mo. However, kung odd yung power nung root, halimbawa, square root of x to the 6 equals x cubed, you need, this is odd, put absolute value. Okay? And in fact, hindi lang yan true for square root. True yan for all even indices. Halimbawa, for number 2, this is true, no? True. And condition na to is true for all even indices. Pag ang index mo ay even, square root, fourth root. So pag fourth root, halimbawa, fourth root of x to the 20. Dinidivide natin yung 20 divided by 4. This is x to the 5th. Odd, therefore meron tayong absolute value. Sixth root of x to the 24th. This is x to the 4th, no? Even yung root niya, no absolute value. Okay. Okay? Now question, paano pag odd yung kanyang index, no? For example, cube root. Cube root of x to the 6th. So x squared, di ba? X squared times x squared times x squared is x to the 6th. So as you can see, we just divide 6 divided by 3, di ba? So x squared, no absolute value. Automatic, pag odd index, no need to put absolute value. Okay? So magkakaroon ka lang ng absolute value kapag ang index mo ay even, tapos yung root mo ay odd. So pag odd index, automatic, hindi mo kailangan ng absolute value. So halimbawa, fifth root of x to the 15th. This is x cubed. So no need. This is odd. No need for absolute value.